Hello, everyone.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our very first virtual Partners in Growth event. We've been doing these quarterly for probably 6 years now. They are normally, we host them here at our office, or we've hosted them at some other venue depending on the size, and always really enjoyed it. And of course, if I had my way, we'd be meeting in person and socializing and getting caught up and all of that. But in the spirit of Partners in Growth, Lucas and I, we did pour ourselves a bourbon in our APEX CPAs rocks glasses, and we want to just toast all of you and wish you all the best success in 2020. And we ask that we're all able to overcome the challenges that faced us the first half of the year, and that we finish this year strongly. And really, this is our way of maybe starting some dialogue on shifting from survival mode to thriving mode. And we're really seeing that there's a lot of opportunities, and we actually have a lot more control over our destiny than maybe it's felt like over the last 3 months. So we're going to be able to share some of the experiences, and we've had conversations with many of our clients over the last several months, and talked with bankers and got perspective from them. We've looked at certain things that have worked really well, certain things that maybe have been challenges. Our firm, for those of you that don't know us really well, we are a bit of I like to think of us as an entrepreneurial firm, always experimenting with new things. And, I feel like we have a lot of experience, and you look at somebody that has a lot of experience, that's somebody that's made a lot of mistakes. And I can certainly attest to the fact that we've made our fair share of mistakes, but have learned from it. And we hope that we can share some of our experience with you today. So we have, how many? Well, we have, it looks like most everybody has signed on. There may be a few that come in, during the course of the presentation, but we're going to leave some time at the end. I see that many people have their mics muted, which is, I think, we greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, a couple technological things. The last one of these we did through a webinar. This one we're doing through a regular Zoom meeting. So if you want to pin our video, so it's the main video, you can right click on us and hit pin video. That'll keep us up on the main screen. Otherwise it'll switch to kind of anybody who's talking, or if somebody makes a noise. Everybody did come in and defaulted to be on mute, but if you have something that you want to add, we want this to be, kind of an open forum, and have questions and be able to foster some discussions. So I think you can probably unmute yourselves, but definitely use the group chat. You can, if you want, you can put it right in the main group chat to everyone. If your chat is not up, if you kind of move your mouse and go down to the bottom, there should be a little chat button that'll bring up the chat on the side, and you can type in there. You can also chat directly to David Rosenbrock, is our marketing director, who helps us set this up in the background, does the PowerPoint, and is on, and he's also feeding me some questions as they come through and helping us out with the technology. So if you got something that you want to send directly to him, he'll get it to me and we can address it if you wanted it to be more anonymous. Yeah, and if you wanted to say something or kind of be put up, we could also put your video up and talk to you that way. So we've got a lot of flexibility here, and would really like to hear from some of you.
Yeah, we want this to be interactive. I mean, look, we're all going through this together. We all have our own unique experiences and things, and so this is an opportunity for us to knowledge share a little bit. So yeah, I like the idea. If you send a group chat or a chat saying, I have a question, or I have something that I'd like to add, we certainly can pause, and then you can unmute and you can communicate. I think that would be a great way to sort of interact with one another. So we really encourage that. And then at the end, we'll have an opportunity for some open dialogue and some discussion on it. So again, thanks very much for joining us. And yeah, you want to get started?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share the PowerPoint here. Back to that. So what, I think next Friday, do we go into phase 4? Is that when it starts?
Next Friday, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's been that long. What's it been, 3 years or 3 months? I don't know what it's been. It feels a lot longer. And I think we're kind of coming out of it from a restrictions perspective and seeing a lot of businesses pick up, a lot of things reopening. Restaurants are going to be able to start having people in the restaurant instead of just sitting outside. So that's good. But it's been really great to see the businesses just pull together and push through this. I know it's been difficult for a lot, but we really appreciate our clients and the relationships we have with them. And to be able to work with you all through this, we appreciate you continuing to work with us and allow us to help you as we move through this together. So
yeah, excellent, excellent. All right, let's get started. Shifting from surviving to thriving post-COVID. There we go. All right, a little bit about me. I'm Jim Chakires, managing partner here at APEX CPAs. Founded the firm in 1998. Reside in Geneva with my wife Jessie, and there's my son and my daughter. That was our last trip to the Phoenix Scottsdale area. We were going on a little hike there, so that's Hendrick and Wilhelmina. My free time, you can find me at my lake house in northern Wisconsin, and I actually do want to reiterate, please don't try to find me. But anyway, little known fact about me, I actually played golf in Morocco, in Florence, Italy, and the Dominican Republic. So I will tell you, Morocco, the cab ride from Jesse and I, we did a Mediterranean cruise for our honeymoon. And so we took a cab ride from the port to Rabat, Morocco. And we played this golf course called the Royal Dar es Salaam in Rabat, Morocco. I guess it was designed by Robert Trent Jones Jr. Many of you have heard of Robert Trent Jones. So I was like, that would be really cool. So we thought we'd go down there and play, and it was actually quite a terrifying experience. I checked it off my list anyway and made it back alive. So anyway, all right. So when we're talking about shifting from survival to thriving, probably the most important thing is cash is king. Cash is like the most important. It's clearly your lifeblood of your organization. When times are really good, we're taking a little bit more risk. We're maybe leveraging a little more. We're spending our cash as it's coming in. We're seeing that, a lot of businesses too, as a result of the PPP funding, especially if their business hasn't come to a complete halt, but they're, still kind of maybe operating at like 70%. They're like flush with cash right now, but there's still so much uncertainty. We really just don't know what's going to happen. So I've kind of got in my head like this, 12-month window. It's like, we got to make sure we've got enough cash to carry us for the next 12 months. And hopefully by then we're starting to see that the fog is lifted and things get a little bit better. So my advice, and this seems to be the sentiment of a lot of our clients as well, is to maintain as much liquidity as possible. If you're sitting on a lot of cash, you want to kind of use that cash sparingly. Keep a close eye on collections. If you have a customer that you're working with that maybe is into you for a little bit of money, keep the dialogue going. Maybe ask for some type of payment terms where they can at least send you a little bit each week. just keep that dialogue open. You know, obviously, you know, we're all looking at it, trying to be as compassionate as we can for our customers and our employees, but staying front and center, keeping a close eye on collections is important. Another thing that we've been recommending, you know, a lot of times, you know, we get very relaxed with our banking relationships. Our banker is always there for us. You know, we'll get the line extended, don't worry about it. And oftentimes the renewal is happening after the line is expired. And you know, I'm looking at this as a time that it's like, you want to try to reach out to your banker. So if you don't know when your line expires, you should know when it expires. And then you probably want to be 6 to 8 weeks before then. Like, you want to be engaging in dialogue with your banker to push for that line renewal sooner rather than later. Because, you know, not saying that this would happen, but it's possible where it could happen if the line is expired and they decide, you know, they want to like call the line, right? That could be a real detriment to cash, which is what we're trying to avoid. So starting that dialogue early to eliminate any kind of surprises is highly recommended, you know, in terms of renewing that line. As crazy as this sounds, you know, sometimes to emphasize a point, I'll talk in terms of extremes. It doesn't mean this is exactly what I'm proposing, but talking in terms of extremes, more debt and more cash is better than no debt and no cash. So more debt and more cash is better than no debt and no cash. Like I said, I think having access to liquidity is vitally important. Plus, I mean, money is really cheap right now. I think prime is at 3.25. Banks are, you know, lending maybe a point over prime. So, you know, money is really cheap. I mean, of course, if you can get money from the bank. But if not, I don't know how many of you out there have looked into the EIDL loan. I know a few of us out there do have some applications out. You know, if you applied for, and the EIDL loan is the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. It's an SBA program that was originally, it's largely used in a conventional sense for like disaster relief, like hurricanes or tornadoes or, you know, forest fire, you know, that type of earthquakes, that sort of thing where a business is materially impacted, that you can apply for this loan. The SBA has made these available as a result of the pandemic. And, you know, the money for the EIDL loans it was not even a trickle when all the PPP funding was going on. I mean, there wasn't anything. We were submitting applications. You wouldn't hear a word for months. Now we're starting to see some movement. We're starting to see some of these applications go through, get approved, get funded. We had one of our clients, you know, they're maybe I don't know, $4 or $5 million manufacturer. They just, you know, did their process. I think they got like a little under $200,000. If the loan is under $200,000, it's not personally guaranteed. And I think the terms are 3.75 term loan over 30 years, and you don't make payments for the first year. So it's really pretty nice. So if you have the opportunity to apply, it doesn't cost you anything to apply. It doesn't hurt to apply. There is somewhere in there that you have to disclose that you receive PPP funds, but you know, you and everyone else, right? So hopefully you receive PPP funds. But anyway, that application needs to be submitted by December 16th. If you look on the website, you know, it'll tell you that it takes about 2 hours to fill out the application. You know, if you have all your information available, you know, it's really pretty straightforward. I think I finished mine in about 40 minutes. So it's a pretty easy process, and it's all done online, and they give you a confirmation.
Yeah, and I've had a few clients contact me about this, and, you know, I think there is a general worry about taking this extra money, especially if it's like right now we're feeling like we're doing all right. And like Jim was saying, that cash is king. The money's available. Take it while it's available, and you can get it. We don't know what's going to happen. And what tends to happen is when you need the money, it's really hard to get. And when you don't need it, it tends to be easier to get. So as long as we're being responsible about using that money and knowing that it's due and not using it frivolously, I've told them, like, take the money, hopefully there's not a resurgence of things in the fall and that,
Right.
but we just don't know. So set it aside. And if you don't use it for that, you can use it for other business building. The rate is cheap. The term is long.
Yeah.
The terms are something we don't ever see. So I think it's a no-brainer to get that. If somebody hasn't gotten the PPP loans yet, I think going out and getting those, there's still funds left and they really want to give those to small businesses.
Mhm.
They've really eased up on the forgiveness of that and made that a lot easier. So yeah, absolutely. Having some debt and to have that cash on hand is paramount to surviving through this. And
the EIDL loan, I look at that almost like insurance.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if it's $200,000, and by the way, it's the discretion of the SBA how much they give, but we've been hearing like a lot of the loans coming in are between 150 and 200,000. I think the largest one we saw, which was about a $17 million restaurant chain that we work with, they got like 500,000. I think the max is like 2 million, but we haven't seen anyone get anywhere close to that. Most clients that we're dealing with that are like around that $10 million range, they seem to be getting about $200,000 in cash. But I think of it more as like insurance. So on that 200, you're probably paying what, $7,500 a year for a $200 to access to $200,000 in cash. If you find a year from now that you're sitting on plenty of extra cash and you want to pay that loan early, you can actually pay that loan off before the payments even start. So, like I said, if you have access to cash, get the cash. So also, many of us are S corporation shareholders or that sort of thing. Pull back on taking big distributions, right? Keep the company well capitalized. A lot of times when business is going really well and we go into a recession, that the music stops and the company has found themselves undercapitalized, and then the economy slows down, and then they really, really feel the pinch, right? So do your best to keep that cash in the business, and so that you have enough to live to fight another day. So pull back on distribution.
And as a pass-through, also look at what you're taking in payroll compared to distributions, because with some of the small business pass-through deductions, it may make sense to pull back on some payroll if you have a large payroll, and keep the distribution. So that's something we could help you balance out if you wanted to look at that, and it could increase the deduction at the end of the year. But if the business activity is down, it may mean that you still are taking out about the same money, but we're getting a better deduction.
Yeah, no, it's good. Good point there. All right. So the first one, cash management. The second one really relates to leadership. It's how important it is to show our leadership through a crisis that we're experiencing. So the most important thing, I think, is to be transparent. We're all working together. Many of us are now working remotely. So the interaction isn't quite to the same extent as it is. I do have to say, though, I'm getting quite used to working in like video conferencing. It is way better than just the telephone.
Yes.
So that really is good. But business is tough. We're all under a lot of stress, and as leaders of our organization, there's a lot of responsibility that falls on us, and sometimes we're not perfect. So if we do screw up, it's important to own it and learn from it. You really want to avoid any kind of blame. You getting into a blaming discussion with your another colleague or an employee or that sort of thing. So avoid blame at all costs. Take ownership and find solutions as a team. So is there a way we can move that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was trying to get the chat to come up.
Perfect. Oh, I see. I see.
I've got it over here, though, so I can see the chat now.
Okay. Communicate frequently. I don't think you can over-communicate. You can't over-communicate with your clients, your customers. You can't over-communicate with your employees or your business partners. So it's important to share with them any new developments that are arising in the organization. Show a genuine concern about their well-being. Check in with people. How are they doing? A lot of times we don't really know what our employees are dealing with behind the scenes. Maybe a spouse had lost their job, or maybe, their kids are having a difficult time because they're not in school. So they have, behavioral issues. There's all sorts of things. So show a genuine concern for their well-being. I think that goes a long way, because we really want to keep our employees fully engaged. That's going to really help us get through this and as we shift to thriving. Find ways that you can help your employees and help your customers. Lucas, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, they communicate frequently.
Focus on flexibility. So
okay.
I covered that.
Okay. The utilize current skills. Yeah. So this is what we've seen a lot of our businesses do that have been able to thrive through this, is focusing on the skills and the assets that they have and finding new ways to use those. One good case in point is a company we have that does a lot of outdoor productions, supporting those with entertainment equipment, lighting, video.
Pharmaceutical industry, primarily, I think, right? They do big shows.
A lot of that. They also work with some big car companies.
Okay.
And that, but yeah, and I think some really large, like mega churches. But anyway, that's been a hugely profitable area for them, and outdoor shows. But with COVID, obviously, that was all shut down. So they were done. Well, they were able to kind of spin and use their equipment to set up a high-tech remote meeting facility in their warehouse, and host, so that somebody could go there and give a conference kind of like this, except to thousands of people. So a very professional thing for huge corporations that needed that kind of facility and may not have had one in-house. And that's been something that's allowed them to basically build a new line of revenue with existing equipment. And coming out of this, they're going to have, two lines of things that they can do. So just, looking at the assets you have, the skills you have, the employees, and being flexible. I think that goes for any business, is being able to do that as you go and looking for those. So that's a good skill to constantly hone and learn from this. But in a case like this, it forces a lot of businesses to do that. Like, what else could we be doing that could make money? So that's been good.
And this really requires, I think, really carving out a chunk of time, like sometime during the week. I tend to do some of my best thinking later on at night. I get up in the morning and I'm just all about tactical, getting a lot of the tactical things done. And then in the evening is my time where I can decompress, and I give myself that space to think about strategic things and ways to be creative and innovate new service offerings and that sort of thing. So you all can find your own way and your own place to do that, but make a point to carve out that time and think about that. I think that's good.
Yes.
Get ahead of issues. If we anticipate like an impending issue, we have layoffs or downsizing, or let's say we have to renegotiate a contract with our landlord or with a vendor or something like that. Jump on it sooner rather than later. So, and then explain to the other party like why you're doing it, and this really goes back to transparency too. Like transparency largely comes from addressing things super early. I think that's a form of transparency. So this kind of dovetails onto that, but just stay ahead of the issues, right? So we're not in reaction mode. There's enough things that are going on that are beyond our control right now that cause us to have to react. So if we could take the things that we are in control of and address them, that's better. It's kind of like I'm kind of putting my auditor hat back on, which I'm a little embarrassed to say that I started my career in auditing, because it's got to be like one of the most boring things ever. But we always talked about risk, right? And there was two types of risk, right? Do you remember what they were?
Inherent and control risk.
Right. Inherent risk and control risk. And inherent risk is the risk that you can't eliminate. It's beyond your control. It's just out there. Control risk is, okay, the way that we act, the way that we put systems and processes and safeguards in place that we're in control of, we can minimize that risk. Right? So if we can eliminate control risk and distill it down to just the inherent risk, then we're in a much better position to respond. So getting ahead of the issue helps us reduce the control risk.
Yeah, absolutely. I started an audit too, and that, when you look at it, accountants tend to distill things down to very technical things, but that's an old saying. It's like control what you can and let the rest go. And that's what we got to look at, is what can we control in these issues? What can we try to make better so that we can get through, and kind of trying to learn from the other parts and gain what information is there that will help us on the other side, but doing what we can where we can.
The next one, this is something that we've been talking a lot about at our firm, because, we talk about combining compassion with accountability. Like I mentioned earlier, like we all have, very unique life circumstances. Some of our employees can be really dealing with some tough stuff. Their kids aren't in school. They're trying to juggle, homeschooling them, coordinating schedules, and they're trying to balance all this with doing their job, and it's oftentimes disruptive at home, and so it's really, really difficult. So you kind of couple compassion with accountability. It's like you have to separate the crisis-related issues from those that are unrelated. Because oftentimes we could fall into this routine, and we've all been there. It's like something major is going on, and then it just causes us to say, well, it's the crisis that's the reason for the issue. And then it's almost like unconscious that it causes us maybe not to look at, are there other things that need to be addressed that we can work on, or that we need to be aware of, that oftentimes are masked by the crisis as the reason. So it's important to distill those, okay? And think about what we can change to affect a more positive outcome. If we are in a difficult situation at home, if we are, if you have an employee whose performance is maybe lagging a little bit, what can you do to maybe help remedy that, so that we still get the accountability, but we do it in a compassionate way? And, Lucas has that saying, like, don't be a security monitor. You want to explain that?
Well, when we talk about this, we like that commercial where the bank's being robbed, and the guy's like, oh, the bank's being robbed, and somebody's like, well, what are you gonna do about it? He's like, oh, I'm just a security monitor.
Just telling you you're being robbed.
Yeah, it's being robbed. It's the most valuable thing people do is find solutions. It's like anybody can point out faults and why and this and that, but it's taking that next step that's the really valuable part. Is what is the solution? What are we doing to make it better? Obviously, we've had to work through a lot, and that's caused various delays and all of that, but what are we doing? And then what can we do to prepare for if something like this happens again? And that's a lot of what we're building and trying to help clients with, and what we'll be focusing on in the future.
And that dovetails into the next one, which is communicate solutions, not just the issues. It's like, pardon my language, but it's like, you can't just sit around and bitch all the time, right? Right? You kind of like, that's fine. We have that, sometimes where we just need to vent and get those things off of our chest. But it's about shifting from, reframing what those, maybe those issues are, reframing it in a way that's, how do you reword it so that it's got a solutions-centric tone to it, right? So defining the issue as concise as possible. A well-written issue is already kind of begins to solve the problem, right? So shift from stressing over things to actually solving as quickly as possible. So again, I think that even goes aligned with, getting ahead of the issue too. So communicate solutions, not just the issues. It's kind of almost like, sometimes people, when they're in a crisis, they have a tendency to fall into a kind of a victim's mindset. Mm-hmm. And we want to be more in a position where we can affect the outcome, right? So anyway, setting clear expectations and empowering your people, right? So, we want to manage to the results. We want to manage to the results, right? It's not like, okay, the old way of doing things is, the old school way, you have the boss walking around the office, walking around the shop and the warehouse or the manufacturing plant and dictating what everybody needs to do, right? That micromanager, right? You're sort of dictating the actions rather than managing to the results. And I think especially when we're working in more of a virtual world, I mean, you're going to drive yourself nuts. As a matter of fact, I think it's virtually impossible to dictate in a virtual environment. You're forced to manage to the results, right? Because, I mean, there's no way to figure out whether or not one of your employees that's supposed to be working 40 hours a week between 8 and 5 every day with an hour lunch is actually doing that. It's like, they may go for a 2-hour, bike ride with their spouse, and then maybe, get back on around 6:30 and work until 8:30. And it's like, if you're trying to dictate, based on, specific actions, as opposed to managing the results, I mean, you're going to drive yourself crazy, because it's just, it's so much, it's like more, it's less visible, or less, it's just a little harder to see, right, when we're working virtually. So reframe and focus on what really matters, what really drives the business success, and really maintain more of a coaching mindset than a dictator's mindset. You want to add to that?
Yeah, I think obviously it's different for every business, and not everybody can be remote. I mean, we have manufacturing businesses; they have to have people they're building it. But really asking ourselves if what we're pushing our employees to do, or what we're overseeing and supervising and reporting on, is really driving the results that we want from them, and then figuring out, okay, what does make the business successful, and how do we make that very clear to our employees to get them engaged. And it helps them, because then they're very clear on what they need to do to be successful at the company, because there's nothing more frustrating than working your ass off, excuse my language, and then finding out, man, I worked all week, 60 hours, and I really didn't accomplish what was important to my boss or to the company. That's really disheartening. So really looking at that and saying, what are the big things, so that they can focus on those. And that allows our employees to really see ways to innovate, to get to that solution faster and better. And a lot of times in a way that we as leaders may not be able to see, because we're not down doing the work. Like, they're working with the clients a lot of times, we're working on the floor, and not micromanaging and giving them the autonomy with those clear expectations can often lead to that innovation, and them finding ways that will innovate the whole business and find efficient ways to do things. So trying to turn that around and focus on results, clear expectations to those employees is huge. And an example from us, and we've got a supervisor here, and she does.
And this is a great example.
Yeah, and
I was just thinking of this.
She does an amazing job, and her comment was really based on probably what she's heard from us for years. And
not from me.
But
I don't say anything wrong.
We've had employees working remotely, and she's like, oh, this staff person, they didn't have 40 hours on their timesheet last week. And I thought about it, and it was like, well, they're working from home. Like, is that really what we want? Like, what are we going to motivate them to do if we say, hey, your timesheet doesn't have 40 hours? Well, they're probably going to go back and put in administrative hours to make it 40, which, does that actually add any value to what we're doing? No, because we're interested in what clients they worked on and what projects they completed. I don't care how many times they went and got water or took a break or those things. We really look at how many client hours, and that's the productivity side of it. So
the quality of their work.
Yeah, so it becomes an exercise in futility, and what, they're going to spend an hour putting in, I need 2 hours of admin this day. No, let's look at what really matters. So reframing that in our minds, that, we don't need it to say 40, we need it to say, 30 client hours, because that's what we're really driving for, and that's what we look at. So
that's why it's impossible to, it's like what you used to, the expectations that you used to kind of manage your people toward. My challenge to you is to relook at those, relook at how you were evaluating people's performance, and it needs to be more of a shift. It's impossible to micromanage in a virtual environment. It's just virtually impossible. Okay, so to Lucas's point, you have to manage for the result. Distill it down to what really, really matters, and that's what you focus on. And then empower your people to meet those objectives. That's a way better way of doing it, right? And I think it's, yeah, so anyway.
Yeah, and if it's a manufacturer, maybe it's the number of parts produced or the quality of those parts, you know, the number of those parts, and them knowing the expectations may help them find a different way to do it that we hadn't even thought of, because we've been so focused on them just working this number of hours in the process.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
good, excellent point there. So the next one, all right, so what have we covered so far? We've covered cash management, and we've covered the importance of leadership, right?
yes.
And so now the next one is kind of like thriving in a virtual world, right? So the shift to working remotely, to working in a virtual world. So what has that allowed? It's allowed us a bigger reach for talent and for customers. These are things that we've never, I mean, how many people out there, and I know you can't necessarily raise your hand, but how many people out there have, you know, had a difficult time finding quality, like talented, people to work for them? I know in the state of Illinois, it's really hard to find good talent. Very hard.
Yes.
It's a very difficult job market for an employer to hire talent.
Yes.
Okay, so how do we so now with this new virtual environment, we have a bigger reach. Right, we have a bigger reach. For all I know, there are people on this call right now that are on the other side of the country, and it makes like no difference to either of us. Yep. We're all still getting the same experience, right? Yep. And so, all right.
Yeah, and we're hearing this all over. I was looking at the videos. One thing you can do is there are some reactions that you can put, like a thumbs up or something.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I saw one of our clients put that up. He's in the IT industry, and I know that kind of like the accounting industry, very tough to find good people. But when we look at it remotely, and we've heard this from a lot of clients, and when you look across the country, it's like, well, let's just open it up to finding the best people anywhere. We've even heard this, a client we're working on with our outsourcing service. He said, I don't care anymore where they live. You know, I want the best people that could work there. And for us, when we look at it, it's like, if we only will hire people that will come to our office, and everybody in this area will go to work anywhere in the nation, then our pool of people just got a lot smaller, because everybody else is more flexible. So I think everybody's gonna have to find ways to work that way. And honestly, those are the good management skills, are the ones that drive the company. When you look at a lot of companies that are thriving now, if you look on the internet at remote working, there's some that started remotely and have thrived that way. I think the company that owns Dropbox, which is a big cloud-based online thing, I'm sure many of you have heard of, they started remotely, and they've got hundreds, if not thousands, of employees, and have always been remote. Simon Sinek, who has a lot of videos online about business, they're all remote, and they've got a lot of really good tips online, and they show kind of their team meetings that they do every Monday to connect and talk and just talk about what's gone on the last week and keep connected as a team in that way. So we have to do that a little differently, but you know, it goes back to the communication you were talking about. In a lot of ways, it's more often, and it's been better in some ways. It's a little easier to just pop onto a Zoom and have that meeting.
There's actually less waste.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's less waste of time. You know, when you think about it, it's like the old school way of thinking of it is, I don't know, my employees are working from home. How do I know that they're actually sitting there working and they're not doing this and they're not doing that? It's like, you know, but when you think about it, it's like we're working remotely. Some of our employees are already saving probably an hour and a half, 2 hours a day.
Yes.
Because they're not driving. So they're fresher, they're more engaged, they're probably willing to work a little bit longer, because it's like, oh, I've got to get home or whatever.
Yep.
If they're already home, it's a lot easier. So I think it's just, and going back to your point, you know, when you said, you know, you don't care where they live, as long as they live somewhere where they have internet access. They got to have a computer, they got to have like some Cat 5 or something like that. Anyway, so when we're looking at thriving in a virtual world, you know, there are some challenges, right? We have been talking a lot about that. Like, how do we supervise? How do we supervise in a virtual world? You know, productivity, we have concerns about productivity. Are we getting the things done that we need to?
Yep.
You always hear about, you know, the old management style, management by walking around, you know, or you're walking up and down and, oh, everyone looks like they're working out, they're here on time.
Yep.
When I was, I started in the public accounting profession in the early 90s, it was, you wanted to be the first one in and the last one to leave. Like that was actually their KPI. And Lucas, you can vouch for that.
Yeah.
In the accounting profession, it was like, show me your loyalty. Even if you didn't do anything, you were the first one in and you were the last one to leave. And you were the conversation of the partners meetings if you weren't. Like if you got in late and you left early, no, it's like your quality of your work almost didn't even matter. It was like, you know, where's your commitment?
Yes. Yep.
And so we have to throw that away. And that's an interesting dynamic as baby boomers are exiting, Gen Xers are kind of taking leadership roles, because Gen Xers still got a little bit of a taste of that, because that's how they were managed. And that's how they moved up the ladder, was showing that, right? So,
Definitely.
But millennials are completely different. Like they don't place any value on that. It's about productivity. So learning how to measure productivity is a challenge. Learning new technologies. There's a lot of people out there, probably over the age of 40, that were thrown into this virtual environment. And I think, in my opinion, it was a godsend, because there are a lot of people out there that were more than willing to embrace virtual work environment. But then there were those people that they reported to who were a little bit older that weren't willing to embrace it. All right, so then there was a stand-up. It's like, well, I can't really work remotely as effectively as I know we can. The technology is there, all right, but the other party isn't willing to engage this way. So I've got to go into the office. I've got to have a meeting. Well, this caused us all to say, well, we have to figure it out. So it elevated. It's almost like the lowest common denominator raised up a couple of rungs on the ladder. And now there's a lot more possibility. Right, so learning new technologies it's a challenge, but I think that it's a huge opportunity as well. So, and then maintaining culture. How do you maintain culture? You know, I think about culture. I think about community, common interests, common goals, common vision. You know, there's alignment. How do you create all of this in a virtual environment? So, maintaining culture, I think, is something that we're going to have to, it's a challenge.
Yeah, you know, there's a really good video. I'll see if I can get the link to David to put out there of the company I was talking about. And he talks about, you know, working remotely more often, but having periodic times when the whole company comes together, and it being very just focused on the relationship side of it and getting to know each other and that kind of thing. So that's still very important. Having those like retreats in one place.
What, honey?
What can I help you with your phone?
Uh-oh.
Can I help with my phone?
There we go.
Yeah, so having that be more relevant and doing some more of that, you know, to maintain that culture and keep together. So.
Yeah, so, all right, enough about the challenges. All right, we know the challenge.
I wanted to add one more that we don't have on here.
Another challenge.
Sorry, yeah, we're gonna have one more challenge, but I think it's worth mentioning, and our IT guy that's on here will appreciate it. A challenge to this working remotely is equipment, and while learning new technologies, there's a lot more opportunity for viruses and all those things. So making sure that your employees have the right equipment and the right setup so that your company data is not at risk. If you have clients like us, that it's not at risk, those types of things. That can be a challenge, but it's something to work through. Yeah. And it's just something to solve for.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And the more that we're working this way, there will be new innovations and technologies that come out too. And that's going to be a whole new growing market, I think.
Correct. And I can touch on that a little bit in our last step on the opportunities.
Okay.
Too, so.
Great. Opportunities. Let's go to the fun side, guys. Focus on and manage to results. Okay. Not the tasks, not the actions. Focus on the results, right? So I think that's very, very important. you know, there's lesser geographic restrictions on customers and talent, right? Like we said earlier, you know, we can have somebody, you know, from, you know, Montana, you know, the most highly skilled CPA. There's no reason why that person, if we have an environment and a culture and, you know, an opportunity to learn new skills and all of this that they're not getting from maybe the firm that they're working for, why wouldn't they consider working with us, right? Especially if it becomes where we're just like a fish to water, like virtually, and we can work this way. We have a virtual employee, a remote employee in San Diego that we work with, and it's seamless and it's great.
Absolutely. And that goes with the travel savings, because we have heard this from several of our manufacturing clients that have traveling salesmen around the country, that obviously that kind of dropped off entirely, but they haven't heard from customers that that's been a negative, and really they've heard that it's not been a problem. So there will be a lot less of that. It's still, you know, meeting in person is good, but it's not as necessary anymore. A lot of that information is online, and you can see all the catalogs and get the information. So they're dialing back on a lot of that travel and FaceTime in that regard.
You know, it's like if you spend the time, like with sales, it's almost like the time that you, let's say, you know, somebody's based out of Chicago and they have customers on the West Coast, right? So all throughout California. So they have the time where they got to travel, they fly out there, and let's say, well, I'm going to line up, I'm going to visit 5 customers while I'm out there. I'm going to go out there for 2 days, I'm going to visit 5 customers. So they look at all that time that they're spending, you know, going to the airport, flying, renting the car, staying in the hotel, visiting their customers, flying back, and you take all that time and all that cost and you divide it up by the 5 customers that you met. And you replace that with, what if I took all that time and all that money and I spent it on improving the service delivery to those customers, which would include getting their orders done quicker, maybe better pricing, and maybe a little bit of phone time, checking in on them more periodically, and you can do all of that from the office, right? And so can you enhance the experience for the customer? It's like really about understanding what they value. Do they really value the sacrifice you made to go out there to see them? Or do they value, you know, the pricing, the speed of the delivery, the consistency of the product, the quality of the product, you know, investing that time and money into that, as opposed to, you know, flying around the country and taking them out for dinner and cocktails and all of that, which is still fine, but maybe not always the same return or value to the customer. I think
it's kind of like with the employees, it's finding more focused ways to do that.
Right.
Not quite as often, but when it happens, more focused to display that.
Yeah,
but
more impact.
I think that also goes with, and you know, we focus a lot on managing office employees, managing service-related employees, but in any business with sales of product, I think the technology plays a big part, and we've seen this whether it's a restaurant or manufacturing. Having a robust website and online sales, demonstrations, ways to demonstrate your product and its benefits, its abilities online, so that customers can see that. I mean, we had already seen a huge move towards people just shop online. I mean, that's where they go to look. They type it in on Google to find the best, you know, whatever product they're looking for. So a focus on making sure that your web presence is very good and displaying your value proposition to those clients. So it doesn't have to be that the salesman has to go and sell them on it. Like, they should be able to be sold on your website on a lot of those things. And a lot of that goes to video and showing all the benefits of all those products, whether it's service or product. And then I've seen restaurants, you know, a lot of them that didn't have a robust like pickup order option on their websites have had to build that quickly. The ones that already had it in place were up and running very easily. Places that have typically sold things just where you walked in and picked out something have had to kind of switch over and get those things online so that you can pick them up, and then having that constantly updated. That's a lot of work, but diverting those funds that way is, I think, going to be a huge thing, and the world's getting smaller in that regard. So,
well, I mean, 2 years ago, I mean, and I'm not gonna, I know I'm saying dumb luck, but it really was a lot of careful planning and exploring, you know, what our firm would need, right? And
yes.
partnering with our IT firm. And thankfully, we, you know, and based on what we were hearing trends of some of the larger firms in the area, we're really making a huge investment toward shifting to the cloud. And not only shifting to the cloud, but making sure that our team had the flexibility of either working from home or working from anywhere, you know, working from the office, working from home. Like we had, where it was probably now been a few years, probably 3 years, where we had some employees that like, you know, I'd like to work home every Tuesday. Is that okay? Yeah, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
So we, you know, invested, you know, what? Couple $100, $1,000, whatever, set them up with monitors and connected them, you know, make sure that they had access to everything. And as we began to shift to the cloud, it became even easier, right?
Yes.
We didn't have to do like a log me in or a VPN access to our server. It was like, all right, here's your link, click on that app, go in, there's all our files, and no problem. So we had been working on that, not knowing that we were going to get hit with this economic buzzsaw, right? We had no idea. But when it happened, thankfully, we were ready. And I think, you know, we were able to respond pretty quickly, and it was still difficult.
Yes,
And, you know,
still a lot of learning curve.
When you see businesses that were operating like they had been, you know, in the early 2000s or in the 90s or the early 2000s, you know, it was a difficult transition. And, you know, a lot of them are kind of slow to come back.
Yep.
So I think that it's important to, you know, that kind of leads into the next one. We talk about flexible work schedules, and it's really becoming more of a work-life integration, right? It's like kind of throughout the day, it's like I'm working a little bit, and then I'm going to maybe do a bike ride with my kids, and then I'm coming back, and then I'm working, and I'm scheduling all of my client time and my meeting time with my employees and meetings and all that, kind of all like kind of integrated together. And
yes.
That's the trend that I see happening. What do you think?
Absolutely. And that can cause some challenges for some people, because then sometimes it feels like you're working all the time. So, you know, you'll see a lot of articles out there about how to, you know, at work, like get up.
Sounds like a business owner. You know, how many business owners out there are thinking about work when they're on vacation, right? If you say you're not, I know better.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, get up, get into your work clothes. I think a lot of people, when the COVID thing came through, it's like they just get out in their pajamas and go to work, and it's just very informal. But it's like you got to do a lot of the same things when you're working from home. It's like, you know, get dressed.
You need that routine.
You know, have that routine and shut down at the end of the day and separate from it, because it's too easy to just let it bleed over into everything else. It's like, I think when employees are working in the office, so for a lot of them, it's very easy. It's like, okay, I'm leaving and I'm going home and I don't have access. When there's more access, sometimes it's harder to disconnect, but it's very, you know, having those boundaries is good. So helping employees with that, and, you know, with having a comfortable home workspace and making sure that they're doing that. Like, that's our responsibility to help them through that, so that they are the most effective and efficient at their work. You know, we don't want them burning out, because they won't tell us until they're burnt out. And then
you can't, like, that is money well spent. Like, make it really, really comfortable for your team to do their job at home.
Yes.
Like, it's the cheapest investment that you can ever get to. And that leads to the next one, occupancy cost savings, right? I mean, you think about, first of all, you're converting, if you can tie the two together. Occupancy costs, would everyone agree, that's about as fixed costs as they come, isn't it? I mean, occupancy costs are fixed. You sign a 5-year lease, it's X amount of dollars a month for 5 years, and if you try to get out of it, you're gonna get sued. It's like, well, what if I need more space, or what if my business shrinks and I need smaller space? No, you're obligated to that lease. Well, if you could swap increasing a fixed cost, occupancy costs, and invest that more into a flexible work environment for your employees. I met with somebody the other day. They've got a large material handling company, like they sell like forklifts and racking and all of this stuff. They're all throughout the Midwest. He's got, I want to say something like 20,000 square feet of office space in Oak Brook for all of his employees. And the lease came up, and the landlord was like playing hardball with them, saying, we got to renew. And so, you have an option to extend of like 2 years. So we need you to do the 2 years, or it's like no deal. And he's like, I want to do a year. I just want to extend for a year. No deal. We'll do 18 months. That's it. So then he went and he did a poll, like all of his employees. I don't know. I think he had there's a lot of space. He said, I had so much office space, but he had like 80 employees in there. And he polled the 80 employees, and like 72 or something of the employees said, I think that I could just as effectively work from home as I could go into the office. And so then he's like, I'm not doing the option to extend at all. And it saving $300,000. You could buy a lot of computer monitors and pay for a lot of internet access with $300,000 or whatever. And so then they opted to just shift more toward a remote work environment. And I'm looking at this and saying, what is going to happen with some of these big downtown metropolitan areas that have all of these big office buildings, these skyscrapers and the Sears Tower, the Willis Tower or whatever.
I'm really interested.
It's going to be I don't know what you do with it all. And I think the banks are pretty nervous about all that.
The banks are very nervous. I talked to a client yesterday. He last year had started a business and was extremely successful delivering meals to huge clients downtown. And obviously, again, when COVID hit, it totally stopped. And he's kind of pivoting now and doing some other things. But yeah, there's nobody working down there, and I don't know when they're going to come back. I mean, I was telling Jim even 10, 15 years ago, I had interviewed with a big four accounting firm down there, and they had hoteling systems even then, where most of their staff are out at clients most of the time, and then on the weekends they would come in, and there was a floor that probably had 200 desks on it, and I had come in for an interview and they sat me down to wait in there, and there was nobody on the floor. It was totally empty. So when you're looking at that, I can't imagine them wanting to keep that space when it's like, well, how much does it cost to set an employee up to work at home? Just go home and work for the weekend. Here's a camera. You can zoom into the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, actually, if you're a smart employee, you're probably negotiating a room addition on your house, maybe build me a study or something like that.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah, he was also saying that he's been, talking a lot with banks, and that they're requiring 30% on real estate or any kind of loans like that. But I've heard that banks are very worried about all their real estate investments. That's always been a really easy investment or an easy loan for them. They're just very consistent, but now that's been tough because the landlords aren't getting paid. So then the landlords
Well, those properties are valued based on rent roll.
Yes.
So if the rent roll is lower, then the valuations are lower, and then a lot of these banks are going to be underwater.
Exactly.
Right. You want to talk about the next one? Cloud technologies?
Yeah, cloud technologies. Ditching the server. This is a huge area that's been growing over the past several years, and we just went basically fully cloud in the last year for our server. We do have where it backs up to a local server so that we could still get to the files here, but cutting that cord hypothetically is a big step, because it's like, well, what if we don't have internet? And I guess at this point with the internet infrastructure, if there's no internet, we've probably got a lot bigger problems in the country.
And the software, on the surface, it seems like a lot more expensive.
It is more expensive.
It's more expensive, but you have to look at it that it frees you up from some of the core, so that you can focus on more of the core business areas of your company, right? Because you're not dealing with, software, like all that's managed.
Exactly, and we did a cost benefit, of course, because we're accountants, and we looked at it, and by using this cloud software and then setting employees up with the software, really we were able to get rid of a lot of our remote login software, or that's the long-term plan, and the cost offsets itself in a lot of areas. And it's been so stable that, we think that once our initial contract with the local backup is up, that we may go to a full cloud server. The other nice thing about it, and we went fully cloud on all our software, like our tax software and that a few years ago. The nice thing about it is when employees are accessing that information, whether it's an Excel sheet or it's a PDF or it's the tax return, they're not downloading any information on their home computers. They're only viewing it. They're viewing it through the internet. So
once they're cut out,
once they're off the internet, it's not on their home computers. So while they do need a good firewall and virus software, we don't have to worry about them taking files out of the office. We're not taking paper files out of the office. We keep them in a locked cabinet. They're very secure here. It used to be that if you wanted to work on a file remotely, you had to take that whole file with you, the client's documents, and work on it at home, which, sounds crazy now to us after, being this really paperless for probably 15 years, 10 or 15 years. So there's a lot of benefits. Those big companies, they have the best security and encryption possible. We had our IT company do a full analysis of that because they wanted to make sure we were doing the right things there. So there's a lot of things to look at to make sure it's right and it's good there. But by and large, that's the way to go. And it's really solving for those opportunities instead of just going the old way, because going forward, that's going to be the way that it does work. And that's where all the software companies are going. When you look at it, even QuickBooks, which we use a lot as an example, they're only developing their cloud-based technology. Like some people want to work on desktop, but if you talk to QuickBooks, that's where they're putting all of their development and innovation and what they're doing. So all software companies are really moving that way. And I think desktop software and local stuff will become a thing of the past. It'll just be dummy servers and people getting on. And that allows for the hoteling. When you say, hey, if you want to come into the office, just sit down at any desk, you can jump onto your files. And when you're home, you just go into the same files. There's no issues there. All of your stuff is backed up in real time, usually in bunkers in 2 or 3 different places. So you don't have to worry about that, a lot of that stuff, but it takes some thought and organization and going through it. And we're looking to help clients with that going forward as part of our services. So.
Yeah, this opportunities list here, there's money there. You guys can make money. That's what it really comes down to, right?
Yeah.
Is making money to enhance our lives, to enhance the lives of our employees and their families. It's like there's so much opportunity. We owe it to ourselves to take a fresh look at the way things are and to see that that there's more opportunity out there to maybe just work a little differently. Right?
Yeah, and I think when you look at that, it's like it affords us, employees and owners more flexibility to work and do things we want to do. Like if you want to take a longer vacation and work, for a week, but in a remote location where your family can do things and travel a little more,
right?
That, you've still got access to everything. You can be in on meetings and then, maybe take 1 week off, but still be there and have your family doing some other things. So I think there's a lot of really good benefits to it. I mean, we're looking at other opportunities and other areas to increase our services and work with other businesses in those areas. And there's not as big of a barrier. Like we might want some kind of place to have meetings there in person, but we don't need a giant office and we can use a lot of our staffing here. We can use staffing really anywhere to balance that out. We don't have to balance it with just staffing in that area. So a lot of good opportunities. It's
important too to understand that we still are as people, we need that social interaction. Right?
Yes.
So there's not to say that working remotely replaces all of that. There still needs to be, like, we have the desire to congregate, to work with one another, and to be, we're physical people. Like we like to interact. So there has to still be a balance of that. And so it's just important to.
And we've, as we've, over the years, we've moved to doing a lot more work with clients remotely because we can remote into their system. We've started to move back to, hey, be very willing to go out to their location if they're just not able to do what they need to do over the remote, like go out there. But if they're working remotely and not commuting as much, I think they're more willing to, today I'm going to stop out of this client and then just go back home and be able to do whatever I need to do. Like it makes it a lot more flexible for them to do that. So that's a big part, but I think it can be a very big positive in all those ways.
Definitely. So we're looking at functions. What functions are companies currently outsourcing? No surprise. IT is a huge, people have been outsourcing IT for a long time. I don't know how many IT people I know that actually work as the IT person within an organization. Mm-hmm. They may have a couple, but in almost all cases, they're just outsourcing that entire function. Legal, I think the large publicly traded companies probably have a legal team because they're getting attacked constantly, so they need to stay on top of all of that. But I don't think that's anything new. That's probably why the increase use in outsourcing for legal is low. Probably it's an indication that it's because it's pretty mature.
That's pretty constant.
Very, very mature. Okay. Real estate and facilities management, they're outsourcing that function, I think, a lot. Companies like Jones Lang LaSalle, they're managing big properties and they have contracts with the property owners and all of that to maintain it. Tax firms, right? Tax preparation and all of that. It doesn't surprise me that one's pretty high. Obviously, we do a fair amount. We don't have any clients. Obviously, we don't have any clients that do, maybe a few of them do their own payroll tax or sales tax.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised it's that low. Currently outsourced, but again, I think a lot of the bigger companies have an internal tax department.
Yeah, so we look at HR, finance, sales, procurement. The interesting thing that we found, just because we're in this line of work, and this was a survey done by Deloitte. Now, it was based on 2016 data, right? Deloitte is I would consider them a thought leader for sure. So, this is based on 2016 data. So I think this survey came out sometime in mid-2017. But what was interesting, and I think that a lot of these are trending even more, like, it's more firms that are using IT, outsourcing IT than they were back in 2016.
Yes.
But what I thought was particularly interesting is that the finance function, and we've been seeing this a lot in our industry where, businesses are like, my accounting department, it's not innovating at all. We're still doing all of this stuff by paper. I'm still manually approving invoices. I'm still signing checks. I'm still approving payroll. It's all of this stuff is done manually. And we just had a client of ours. They have maybe a $17 million, they're a grinding and milling equipment manufacturing company. So they anything that's dry, they grind and mill. Okay, so they make this equipment to do this. And he's like, we have an accounts payable clerk, we have an accounts receivable clerk, we have a controller, we have, an inventory person. Their entire accounting function, they're spending well over $300,000 in this function. And he says it hasn't operated any differently since we acquired the business in like 2002, 2003. And it's like, if you have 40 hours to do something, you'll find a way for it to take 40 hours. So they're looking at it saying, our entire finance function, which to most companies is considered a cost center, Well, when we look at our finance function here internally, well, it's a profit center for us. We're motivated by innovation. Like if we utilize technology and make things run smoother through technology and better training of our people, we need to get it done and get it done as quickly as possible. That's how we make money. So businesses are looking at this and saying, you know, if we can outsource that function to a team of accounting professionals and we don't have to hire and train and oversee, because most people that are running businesses and responsible for that function, they're not accounting people. You know, they could be, you know, they're CEOs or they're trying to run every other aspect of their business. So they just say, you know what, we want to off that to the finance professionals, let them manage it. And again, they're managing to results. Are bills getting paid? Are deposits being made? Are the financial statements being prepared? Are we getting the reports that we need in order to make effective decisions? That's all that they care about.
Yes.
And if they can off that to someone else and they can do it at a price savings, that allows them to focus on core business functions, right?
Yes.
And so that's where we're seeing, you know, there's definitely, and it's not just finance, it's all these other areas that smart companies are looking at outsourcing them, right? Because most of these areas here are cost centers to a manufacturing company, let's say, for example, right? They're all cost centers.
Yes.
So if they can outsource it, then they get natural innovation in those areas, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's what we talked about is when they're outsourcing that. When it's internal, it's just an expense, and a lot of times they don't know how to manage for the results. And it's just one person doing that. When they're getting a team of people, they garner all that expertise from that team and can manage for results and see those things. So regardless of what area it's in, they're finding that a lot of those, and sometimes they're combining it, like they might have an IT person that kind of is there doing things, but they have an outside company that helps with higher level stuff. And we see that with accounting sometimes too, where they have a bookkeeper in-house that does things internally, but you know, we can help out on the higher end work, the controller, the CFO type close, because they're just not at that level that they would have a high level controller. And the other thing is with technology in a lot of those areas, HR and accounting, so much of that can be automated now that it's just not necessary to have somebody there inputting transactions. And that's probably the least efficient and effective thing for people to do, because so much of it can be linked to banks and all that, but it still needs oversight. If that's just set and it goes for months and months, then it's a whole lot of work at year end, because while the AI is good right now, it's not great. And there are things that need oversight. And that's really what the outsourced people should be looking at, is those higher level pieces.
Yeah, the oversight.
Yes.
Yeah. Lucas, you want to talk a little bit about, like, okay, so why do companies outsource? I mean, there's some real key reasons, right? And obviously cost cutting. You know, if we get a 300, you know, I'm looking at the one particular client that we're talking about. They spend over $300,000 on their finance function.
Yes.
Well, how much of that time is really productive time, right?
Correct.
It's like, well, I need somebody on AR. I need somebody on accounts payable. I need somebody on inventory. I need somebody closing the books. Well, we see it all the time that companies have in-house controllers that they're paying six-figure salaries plus benefits plus payroll taxes plus all of this. And the majority of their work is done, like, what, maybe in the first or second week of the month. And then it's like they're finding other things to maybe work on that maybe are productive, maybe aren't, most likely aren't. And we find that there's I think a lot of waste that happens, especially in the controller's function.
And they're not innovating because internally they're not.
There's no motivation to get things done because they're already not overextended, right?
Yes, whether it's an accounting firm or an IT firm or HR, all those companies see hundreds of clients and see best practices among them.
Exactly.
And then can apply that to all of their clients, whereas internally it can sometimes become stagnant. There are good controllers out there and there are good accountants, but that can still, even in partnership with somebody else, help the company. So, you know, the capacity issues is one thing. Like when companies have big swings in sales, like if they have a big decrease, for instance, during COVID, like being able to flex out.
Yeah, pull back. We want to pull back. Right. It's hard to like tell an employee, you know, most of these functions are salaried employees, right? And so yeah, you're looking at cost cutting. You're looking at allowing, if the leadership of the organization can unchain from the focus of managing all of those various departments, IT, finance, right? What tax, HR, they can outsource all of that and leave that to the professionals. They can focus on the core business, right? And then that increases capacity, right?
Yes.
They have more capacity to focus on the things that are important for the business. And yeah, when you talk about access to intellectual capital and then transformational change, which is at the bottom, that's where the innovation comes in, right? And they're ensuring that those areas of the firm, it's like those areas of the company, it's like the latest, greatest, best practices that are involved, because that's the business that those outsourced companies are in, right?
Yes.
So very important.
Yes. And with outsourcing, to go back to some of our leadership things through this, setting clear expectations with outsourced providers is very important.
Yeah.
Because then they know what they need to do, and then holding them to that. And sometimes it's easier because there's not the internal relationship, the HR issues, some of those, things that come along with that. So we've heard that from several companies.
Businesses do have a hard time quantifying the value that is created through innovation. Like, they can calculate the value in terms of, all right, this function is being done at 75% of the old cost, but it's hard to quantify how the innovation, like how to value the innovation that is existing. That's something that I think companies are working on, and how to measure that. But I mean, from our vantage point, I think we could easily quantify the value of the innovation, like on the finance function.
Yes.
And initial reporting, how you can make more informed decisions. We have one client that says, don't mistake data for information, and don't mistake information for insight. If we could provide more insight and less data, that's a lot more valuable. And I think that can be quantified.
Yep. Things that can help you make decisions. That's
right.
Really what business owners want. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. So this is a brief, kind of a little bit of a shameless but this is an area that we're seeing. There's an industry trend, right?
Yes.
To outsource accounting functions. So we have now launched an APEX Flex outsourced accounting function, and it's really distilled down to the benefits in like really 4 key areas: cost savings, unchaining the business owner, and having access to an expert team. So by outsourcing to us, you'll have a team of specialists with varying degrees of expertise in varying areas, and then also innovation, right? Ensuring that finance function is being innovated. And typically we see at least about a 25% reduction relative to what maybe their in-house costs would be. So yes, we like to, again, and that encourages us to say, it forces us to be innovative. Yeah, how can we get that function done in less time and at less cost, so that we can pass that cost along, that savings along to our customer? And then it also puts us in a position where we can help with more advanced things, right? Because we have an inside look at that. And these are all, when you're looking at a team of finance specialists that have an intimate understanding of the business, then we can use our collective skills, which of course are going to be more than the skills of one person, right?
Exactly.
And so that we see that there's really a win-win for everybody there. So this is a new service offering that we have put out that we're really excited about, and we're working with several clients on it now, and we're having a lot of fun with it. So
yeah, anyway. and one thing just related to this, in terms of, it's hard to quantify sometimes, but we find often somebody will lose an accountant, and then they don't replace them for a while, and then towards the end of the year we're talking to them and they don't have good numbers, so we can't do good tax planning, and we can't really help them that well because we don't know the numbers. When we're helping them with all of this, we've got control over them throughout the year, exactly. Then we have good numbers, so we can get them a much better tax result. We can help them with long-term planning. So the long-term effects of having good numbers throughout will help them make business decisions and all that. And that accrues, you know, it compounds over time of having those good things. And then when they, you know, if they decide they want to look at selling the business, they've got good numbers for several years and they're not behind on that. It can cause a real problem if there's big holes or there's just messy accounting. So a lot of benefits to just having really consistent accounting in that area. And we do deadlifts. So
yeah, well, and that sort of thing produces the two most valuable resources to a business owner. It produces time and it produces money. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. If we had all the time that we wanted and all the money we wanted, how much better our lives would be, right? So that's really the goal. All right. So anyway, just kind of recap. It's important to remain flexible, right? Working in a virtual environment, we have to remain flexible. You know, outsourcing is something that we all should be considering in our business. You know, we're doing the same here. You know, we outsource our IT, we outsource our legal, we outsource our human resources, we outsource our payroll. We're actually, you know, you would think that as accountants, we're in payroll. Like we outsource that payroll function for ourselves because it would take a lot of time for us to do all of that. And that takes away from us focusing on our core business, providing advisory services to our clients, right? So, you know, and focus on leadership, right? Providing leadership to our people. And that's what we all really need to do in order to thrive in this post-pandemic world. And anyway, I thought at this point we would, you know, here's a little bit of our contact information. And we're going to, by the way, we'll make this presentation available on our website.
Yep.
David Rosenbrock has been very good at, and by the way, I want to thank David for putting together this PowerPoint presentation. He did an excellent job, and we couldn't be prouder to have him on our team. He's really helped us in the consistency of pulling all of our webinars together, and he's behind the scenes a lot, but he really needs to be recognized and just does a great job. So we're very, very grateful for you, David, and all the work that you do.
Thank you.
So we're going to make this available on our website, and we'll send out a follow-up email to all the attendees too, to remind them of that. And you know,
feel free to share it. Ask any questions you may have. And we'd be glad to support you in any way you need as we come out of this. Looks like we might have a question here on the chat.
I didn't do it.
If I could get the chat to come up again, I don't know why. There we go. Oh, just somebody saying thank you.
All right, great.
No problem. No, we're glad to do it.
Yeah.
I know last week they released some more stuff on the Paycheck Protection Program. Just real quickly on that, hold off on doing anything with it.
Definitely hold off.
They've really loosened up on the things to go with it. If you've got an early Paycheck Protection Program loan, there's going to be the opportunity to choose which period you use. A lot of the banks are setting up online portals to get the forgiveness, and I think they released yesterday or the day before that they're going to allow early applications. So if you're taking the 24-week option, you don't have to wait the 24 weeks to get it in. So it's in our best interest as well to get everybody getting those applications in before December, because we don't want, I think I read one article, a guy that does a lot of our tax training saying before they said we could do it early, that we're going to have a busy season the last 2 to 3 weeks of December, which does not sound that great to us. So we really want to help people get this in and get it expedited as soon as possible. As soon as they have enough costs to get it forgiven, it should be pretty, I don't want to say easy, but a lot easier for most businesses to get that taken care of. We just want to, there's a lot of documentation that'll have to go in, and you definitely need your second quarter payroll tax return, which you'll have to get through June and then get that prepared. So we'll track those numbers, help you through that if you have any questions, but a lot of new stuff on that to go through, new applications and everything.
To answer Colin's question, It's this apple juice.
It's either the best or the worst apple juice I've ever had. I don't.
If you thought it was apple juice, it means that, you know, I must have did an okay job because, actually, yeah, it's a great question. I'll let you know. I'm actually not sure.
Stop by one day. We'll let you try it.
But we want to open this up, and like if there's anybody that has anything, what's the best way to do it? Where someone says a chat and they have something to say?
Yeah, or I think they can unmute themselves if they want to say
Okay.
anything. Let me stop the share on this.
It would be really great to hear from some of the folks that attended, and you know, if they have maybe some other experiences that they've encountered in their own business that might be helpful.
Yeah, looks like we've got a lot of our APEX employees on here, a few business owners left still on. If anybody's got any questions, we'd be glad to answer those. We really appreciate everybody joining us today, and yeah.
Okay. What do we got? We got somebody. Thanks, Colin. You're the best, bud. Yeah. One of our favorites for sure. For sure. He said, just checking. Thank God you boys didn't let me down. Yeah, it is. I think it's Maker's Mark. I think that's what we're drinking today. So yeah, it was fun. It was actually a lot of fun. We thought it would be a way to just add a little bit of levity to the meeting and try to make it feel a little bit more normal. You know, we host these events and we have them here. Like I said, it's just nothing's quite the same as seeing all of you in person and interacting and walking around the room and checking in with everybody. So, you know, but given the circumstances, if this is the best we can do, we'll take it. And we're just grateful to have all of you attending and participating.
And the good news, I think they're saying, you know, they're going to expand to, it was a max of 10 people at gatherings. They're going to expand that to 50. So hopefully by the next one, we can do a bit of a hybrid where we have people here and we can also have the Zoom going. We're on Zoom and we can have those. We're adding some screens in the office here so that we can better facilitate those meetings with having people on Zoom and in the office. We really enjoy connecting with our clients this way and keeping it open for questions. We think that's probably as valuable, if not more valuable, than entering checks and, you know, doing deposits and bank recs. That's a service that has to be done, and we want to make sure the numbers are right. But really, you need information to help you run your business based on what's coming through, and we want to help you help give you that, and help you through that as much as we can. So.
Well, great, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening. If we don't talk to you, please have a blessed 4th of July. I ask that we all pray for our nation. We pray that we are able to navigate through some of maybe the differences that we're all facing right now and all of that. And you know, I know that everybody that's on this call is you know, red-blooded, country-loving Americans, and we want to just get back to just being so grateful for the freedom we have and to protect that freedom, and so that we can all run our businesses and provide for our families and our employees' families, and so we ask God's grace that we're able to kind of work through some of the challenges we're facing right now. So with that being said, thanks very much for your time, and we're grateful that you took time out of your day to share it with us, and hopefully we all walked away maybe learning a little something anyways.
Yeah, and thank you to our clients. Thank you to our great team who supported us through all this.
Absolutely.
And supported our clients. They've been amazing. I know everybody's got different struggles that they've went through in dealing with this and dealing with us, you know, as we've worked through this, but they're amazing, and we couldn't do it without them. And we're really looking forward to the future and what can come and how we can further help our clients. So
thanks a lot, guys.